Sarana Solusindo Informatika, one of Indonesia's leading high technology and innovation company that helps you to build profitable and effective connection between information technology and business. Started as an exclusive high-quality computer training provider that always evolves to develop. As Indonesia's pioneer of Microsoft license holder with over 30 years of experience and supported with highly IT experts, Solusi is committed to strengthen your company and become your trustworthy IT business-to-business partner. Started the journey in January 1986, Solusindo kept one clear goal in mind: to give total solution to customer. Our initial contract was in 1993, we are chosen the Best Lotus Authorized Dealer Award. The growth was great, and the journey still goes on, and in these past 6 years, it's become more impressive because we are trusted to be registered partners for many principals. Adobe Gold Partner, HP, Dell, and Fujitsu, Thycotic, Kemp, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Cisco. With the fact that ICT technology expansion is getting real, we are here to offer solutions. By offering a training center that empowers you to stay competitive, and providing software and licensing solutions that help you reduce ineffective cost and boost your company performance. With proven track of success over 3 decades, we've successfully helped various enterprises. We guarantee excellent service, including latest and updated products, to give you reliable results and good networking with principals around the world. Agile and reliable service, updated and latest technology, expert and experienced support, proven commitment and trustworthy service. We are ready to help you. Reach us.
Do you know you're being watched? Every second, every moment, someone is keeping track in one dark corner of the internet, waiting and watching for a moment to strike. What your business needs is early intelligence for early threat detection. You can just Cyble it. At Cyble, our vision is to provide digital risk protection through careful analysis, innovation, and automation. As part of our vision, we have built a scalable, robust, smart technology integrated with human intelligence through our network of security researchers. Cyble's AI-powered SaaS systems and networks give your organization a unified view of your external threat landscape, covering the surface, deep, and dark web, with predictive intelligence to mitigate risks from ransomware, extortion, and data leakage. We watch the people watching your business and stop them, so your business has no roadblocks. Protect your data from the dark web. Cyble it.
Stay tuned. Executive session webinar, Managing Risk in Digital Transformation, will be start soon. Thank you.
Selamat pagi dan selamat datang kepada Bapak-Bapak dan Ibu-Ibu sekalian di dalam acara eksekutif session webinar dengan judul Managing Risk in Digital Transformation. Perkenalkan saya Ardi Suteja yang akan menjadi pemandu acara bagi bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu pada pagi hari ini. Izinkan pula saya untuk menyapa dan ucapkan selamat pagi kepada Managing Director Cyble Solusi Informatika, Bapak Rifani Iskandar. Selamat pagi, Pak Rifani.
Selamat pagi, Pak Ardi.
Dan Head of Cyber Threat Intelligence Gojek GoTo, Mr. Jurgen Fritz. Good morning, Jurgen.
Selamat pagi.
Chief Information Security Officer Cyble, Mr. Rishi Mehta. Good morning, Rishi.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
And Sales Director and Channel Asia Pacific Cyble, Mr. Maxim Mitrokit. Good morning, Maxim.
Good morning, everyone.
Untuk bisa melanjut pada acara pada pagi ini, izinkan saya memberikan semacam pengantar mengenai kira-kira apa yang akan menjadi fokus dan perhatian kita semua untuk ke depan. Sebagaimana kita ketahui, ancaman cyber sudah menjadi suatu hal yang signifikan, bukan saja bagi kehidupan kita, tapi juga sudah bisa berimbas kepada kegiatan ekonomi, bahkan perekonomian kita sekarang ini bergantung pada infrastruktur cyber. Dan kerugian-kerugian yang sudah terjadi akibat serangan cyber bukan saja merugikan secara ekonomi, namun juga angkanya sudah mencapai angka yang cukup signifikan. Selain itu, ancaman cyber juga semakin hari akan semakin kompleks, baik dari segi bentuk ancaman dan ragam teknologi dan sebagainya. Selain itu, selain ancaman yang akan kita hadapi, kita juga akan hadapi ancaman yang justru berdampak pada ekonomi dan bottom line daripada masing-masing perusahaan kita, ya, di mana hampir sebagian besar serangan cyber itu terjadi karena adanya motivasi ekonomi dan finansial. Dan sebagaimana kita ketahui dari berbagai laporan maupun liputan media yang sudah ada, ancaman cyber semakin hari semakin besar dan semakin tidak bisa diprediksi. Untuk itu, mari kita masuk kepada inti acara pada pagi ini yang membahas kira-kira apa saja yang bisa kita lakukan terkait dengan potensi-potensi ancaman yang akan terjadi dan akan kita hadapi segera. Baiklah, untuk memulai rangkaian acara pada hari ini, saya ingin mengundang Bapak Rifani Iskandar selaku Managing Director dari PT Sarana Solusi Informatika untuk kiranya berkenan memberikan kata sambutannya. Kepada Pak Rifani, kami persilakan.
Terima kasih, Pak Ardi. Selamat pagi, Bapak-Bapak, Ibu-Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati. Good morning also to all the speakers and moderator, of course. Pagi ini kita sangat beruntung kita mendapatkan tamu-tamu teman-teman dan narasumber yang saya rasa cukup kompeten di bidangnya akan sharing mengenai cybersecurity yang akhir-akhir ini sangat marak dan tentu saja kita rasakan terjadi. Ya. Kalau kita bicara cybersecurity, kita bicara Indonesia tentunya. Indonesia terlihat sekali sekarang ini menjadi negara yang sangat menonjol di antara pada cyberkriminal. Saya tidak mengatakan target mungkin ya, tapi sangat menonjol di mata mereka. Kenapa begitu? Kita lihat banyak hal yang terjadi akhir-akhir ini. Beberapa perusahaan-perusahaan besar di-attack, dicuri datanya, dan sebagainya. Begitu juga kalau kita monitor di yang katanya underground, darkweb, conversation para hacker-hackers itu, adalah Indonesia sering menjadi pembicaraan. Ya. Sebagai negara yang berkembang sangat pesat, saya katakan, alhamdulillah kita juga sudah bisa melewati masa-masa pandemi yang menurut saya pada saat ini kita pada level yang tidak terlalu mengkhawatirkan lagi. Ya, bisnis yang selalu berkembang, dan dengan adanya pandemi ini kita transform ke dunia yang baru dalam cara kita bekerja, ya, sehingga digital security menjadi sangat-sangat penting. Saya yakin di perusahaan-perusahaan bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu sekalian, di notebook, di komputer bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu sekalian sudah ada proteksi, mulai dari yang paling depan, tentunya berlapis-lapis ya, mulai dari yang paling depan seperti firewall dan sebagainya sampai yang paling belakang situ ada. Ya. Tapi pertanyaannya adalah apakah itu aja cukup? Nah, kalau kita lihat perusahaan-perusahaan yang sudah menjadi target dan sudah terjadi belakangan ini, bukan berarti mereka tidak mempunyai security yang baik, bukan. Mereka mempunyai security yang baik, tetapi permasalahannya adalah penjahat-penjahat digital di luar sana selalu berusaha menjadi lebih pintar dari kita. Selalu berusaha mencari celah, dan selalu celah itu pasti ada dimanapun. Ya. Oleh sebab itu, ada satu step lagi di belakang yang kita harus berhati-hati dan kita harus miliki kemampuan, yaitu kalau itu sudah terjadi, bagaimana kita mitigate itu, ya, bagaimana kita mengembalikan, meminimize risk factor, dampak dari apa yang terjadi kalau sampai cyberkriminal sudah terjadi di perusahaan kita. Ya. Dan di sini kita beruntung sekali mempunyai moderator yang berpengalaman pada bidang ini dan para narasumber yang juga berpengalaman ya memanage misalnya Gojek, security di Gojek yang saya yakin sangat-sangat kompleks dan mendapatkan attack dari waktu ke waktu. Ya, mudah-mudahan sesi hari ini dapat memberikan manfaat bagi kita semua, sehingga ke depannya kita bisa lebih maju lagi, kita bisa memproteksi diri kita dan Indonesia bisa memproteksi dari serangan digital security. Itu aja dari saya. Terima kasih Pak Ardi.
Terima kasih Pak Rifani atas sambutannya yang telah disampaikan. Sebelum kita memasuki acara sesi panel, saya ingin mengimbau pada bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu yang ingin bertanya di dalam diskusi pada pagi ini, agar dapat menuangkan pertanyaan di dalam kolom chat, dan jangan lupa mengawalinya dengan pertanyaan dengan mencantumkan nama serta asal organisasinya. Untuk tidak terlalu berlama-lama lagi, saya ingin memperkenalkan kepada bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu narasumber kami yang akan bergabung di dalam sesi panel diskusi pada pagi ini. Our first panelist, Mr. Jurgen Fritz, who is the head of Cyber Intelligence Gojek Go2. Please welcome Mr. Jurgen Fritz, and please, Jurgen, give us 1 or 2 words describing yourself.
Okay, selamat pagi. So nama saya Jurgen. Sorry, my Bahasa is not that good, so I can basically say that I'm currently sitting in Singapore, but I have team members sitting in Indonesia, and I'm responsible for providing cyber threat intelligence throughout the Go2 organization, and that means Gojek and Go2 Financial, which is a more upcoming brand within our company. So yeah, I'm passionate about cyber threat intelligence, so that's why I'm today here on the panel to hopefully provide some insight, at least on my vision or my take on things. And most of the times, my thoughts are written out on a blog, so you can go to www.correlatedsecurity.com, and it has all the diagrams I mostly talk about. So I hope there's a lot of value there. So thank you everybody.
Our next panelist, Mr. Rishi Mehta, Chief Information Security Officer from Cyble. Please welcome Mr. Rishi Mehta. And Mr. Rishi, please give us 1 or 2 words describing about what do you actually do. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Adi. And good morning again, everyone. Happy to be here, and thank you everybody who's participating today. I'm Rishi Mehta. I'm based out of Bangalore in India. I am the CISO for Cyble. I'm responsible for information security at Cyble. Now, as some of you may have heard in our introductory message, at Cyble, we are a cybersecurity services provider. We are in the business of curating threat intel and sharing it with our customers, which makes it usable and helps them mitigate cyber risks. My role in that process is to ensure that we are taking care of that data, we are taking care of the information, our systems, so our customers can do business with us in a secure way, and they know that their data and information is being well taken care of. Like Jurgen said, I'm extremely passionate about the field of cybersecurity. Have been doing that for the last 20 odd years in various organizations, helping build global cybersecurity programs is what I do. I'm equally passionate about how cybersecurity helps driving business transformation as well. And thus, I'm happy to be here to share my perspectives and also learn and hear from perspectives from everyone else. On not just from a risk standpoint, how cybersecurity can help mitigate some of the risks around digital transformations, but also how it can help enable the businesses move faster in a much more secure way. So thank you and happy to be here.
Thank you, Rishi. And our last panelist this morning, Mr. Maxim Mitrokin, who is the Sales Director and Channel Asia Pacific Cyble. Please welcome Mr. Maxim. And please, Maxim, give us 1 or 2 words describing about yourself. Thank you, Maxim.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to participate in this session. Frankly, there are not so many interesting things that I can share about myself, because among all other brightest panelists which participate in this discussion, and of course the moderator which we have today, I'm probably the most boring person because I'm a salesperson. I have a linguistic education. However, I managed to spend almost 20 years in cybersecurity industry, and I was working in different roles and different capacities for companies like cybersecurity companies like Kaspersky Lab, Acronis. So once again, I'm very excited to participate, and I do hope that I will be able to contribute and bring some value to this discussion. Thank you very much, and back to you, Pakardi.
Thank you, Maxim. Now that I have presented all the panelists, and now let's the show begin. In this panel discussion this morning, we have several questions that we need for all the panelists to clarify and elaborate. The first question that I need to ask is about the threat intelligence and risk protection. How do they differ from each other, and why do you think organization needs them? And I will ask this question to Maxim.
Okay, thank you very much for this question, Pakardi. I do believe that it would be really helpful for the sake of this discussion to shed some light on this topic. As a matter of fact, many people are asking about threat intelligence and digital risk protection, and they're asking, is it different or is it the same? What comes first, etc. And indeed, I understand that it's quite easy to get lost among all these fancy buzzwords that appear each and every day. But no matter what, I strongly believe that these two is quite easy to grasp. Imagine if you are a bank, it would be very logical for you to start collecting information which is related to your industry, right? No matter where the incident happens, because it happens even in the other part of the world, right? If this security incident somehow related to finance industry, it will be very natural for you to collect more information about it. You might try to understand what has happened, what was the vector of attack, right? What was the specific way, how bad guys attacked the victim. You might also try to get to collect IOCs, and you might also try to profile the threat actor. In other words, you will be collecting the information about different incidents which are not directly related to you, organization, but might impact you in the future. And in other words, you are collecting information in line with your priorities and strategic goals, right? And you first decide what is important for you, and then you are starting to collect and prioritize data and preparing the incident response in accordance with your strategy. So this is exactly threat intelligence. On the other side, digital risk protection, as its name suggests, deals with numerous digital risks that your organization deal on a day-by-day basis. It could be anything, right? It could be open port, especially if it's associated with some vulnerability. It could be piece of code which is somehow have some sensitive data and which is stored somewhere in the GitHub, and which is available to everyone. Whatever. It's something which is happening, and actually what is actually happening right now with you today, not to someone else, but you. And as you can see from this slide, digital risk protection is something which helps you to stop bleeding. You have a problem now, and you have to fix it today. Yeah. So, so put it this way, from my point of view, all these questions, which is more important and what comes first, is actually meaningless, because it's like you will be trying to decide what is more important for you, strategy or tactics. Both, we understand that both are very important for you, because they are actually two sides of one coin. And for the sake of this discussion, I suggest that we shouldn't worry too much about what exactly we're talking about in this given moment. Is it threat intelligence or digital risk protection? Because in the end of the day, we're talking about security intelligence, no matter it belongs to more tactic or strategy. So this, I believe, would be the right approach for us today. So back to you, Bacardi.
Thank you, Maxim. Jurgen, would you care to add and elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So if I look at the study material on cyber threat intelligence, and I'm coming a little bit from the cyber threat intelligence world, you will not find a lot of mention of digital risk protection as a product category or in some shape or form mentioned in the study materials. And that has to do with probably Gartner, which is known to sometimes carve out product categories, has sort of pushed this onto the main visibility field. So would I say they are different or overlapping? I will just take a more general approach, saying they both look at the external threat landscape, and I wouldn't make a distinction between who is first to only observe or stop the bleeding or mitigate. I would just say they look at the external landscape. If they see something abnormal, they will report on it, and then as fast as possible, you want to mitigate it. So on the side of digital risk protection, where you talk more about maybe a domain lookalike or an app that is on the App Store that is not yours, but someone is copying it, or social media monitoring, where you look at someone on the external social media that's doing something shady that hurts your brand reputation, versus on the cyber threat intelligence front, where you have a SOC team that needs to be more occupied with IPs, IOCs, threat detection, then a level higher, a little bit more sophisticated analysis of a threat actor. These two basically both need to end up doing something, and digital risk protection for me will be mostly handled by a takedown team that just tells, hey, take down this domain, take down this social media item, while on the CTI team, mostly the CISR team or the incident response team will take action and mitigate. So that's a little bit my position on it, and it also has to do with who's sponsoring your CTI program or digital risk program in that sense. If it comes from legal, from a KPI that says our brand needs to be trustworthy, that's different than, let's say, a CTI team where you have a SOC team and they say, hey, we want to do better detection. We want to know our threat actors. There are different kind of points of view. And depending on who's having the bigger wallet, as you might say, in your organization to fund this project, you have a tilt towards the left or the right of these two categories. So that would be, in summary, my opinion on the matter.
Thank you, Jurgen. What about you, Rishi? Do you have anything to add and elaborate, maybe?
No, I completely agree. Right, this could be a chicken and egg story. What comes first? It really doesn't matter. I think it's important to reiterate and emphasize that both are driven with the objective of making sure that the business is resilient, that the business has enough resilience in its operations to take care of any kind of threats, internal or external, so that business continuity is maintained. And secondly, both these systems have to be extremely adaptable, right? These are constantly learning systems. They're learning from each other. And they're also learning from changes that are happening in the ecosystem internally and externally. And that's how it kind of comes together to help mitigate the risks for the organization.
Thank you, Rishi. Now we go to the next question. This will ask you relating to client's use case in general. Do you have any story that you can tell us about specific client use case in the financial industry from your perspective, Rishi?
Hey, look, when you think of use cases on cyber risk, and more specifically, as you think of use cases around threat intel and the digital risk protection, it is important to think about this from a perspective of the goal, right? Like we said, the goal is to think about resilience for business. The goal is to make sure that if the business is moving fast, which is a key aspect of digital transformations, how do we ensure that we are supporting the business to do what they need to do? So if you were to abstract the information on this slide, right, there is a set of use cases which are related to exposure. You could think about exposure in the sense, hey, are some of my credentials on the dark web already out there that I should be aware of, and thus I need to act on it. You could be thinking about what are some of the what is some of the chatter that I'm hearing on open source intelligence sources, and figuring out, hey, does it mean something to me? Should I act on it? So there is a lot of focus on being able to look at dark web, surface web as a complete ecosystem, and keep an ear on the ground to see, hey, what is this telling me? But that's exposure related, right? Similarly, when you take that exposure externally, today I understand in the audience there are a lot of financial services, right? A lot of organizations who are in the business of financial services, and one of the things that is equally relevant to financial services as it is to a lot of other industries today is that you're no longer operating in silos. You are operating as a sum of various parts. You do business with a whole lot of organizations. Somebody may be providing you credit services. Somebody may be providing you credit verification, collection services. It's a whole ecosystem, right? And thus, the ecosystem not just extends to the benefits that you get from the ecosystem, but also the risks that you get from the ecosystem. And if you look at that, then the third-party risk management, third-party risk scoring becomes an extremely important aspect as a use case. Today, if a financial service is working with a vendor, for example, whose credentials are out there, who may already be susceptible to some cyber risk, it is incumbent on the financial services to know that, because they may get impacted with it as well. So internal and external exposure is an important key driver here. We spoke a little bit about this. Think about vulnerabilities. Think about what is your attack surface area? Are we aware of the vulnerabilities on that? We spoke about code being found in places where it never should be, right? Organizations today are building very fast. They are deploying changes into production at a much faster pace than we've ever seen before. And when you think of those, is there a chance of misconfiguration? Is there a chance of error? Yes. At the end of the day, it is possible. These services on attack surface detection and hunting will help you figure out those misconfigurations much faster than an adversary can, and thus you can remediate and fix it quickly. As on this slide, as you look at the lower part of the use cases, think intel, think cybercrime intelligence, think overall threat intelligence. On various advisories, your teams need to be able to relate to threat actors. So when you see action with a Zeus malware or a Lockbit ransomware and so on and so forth, the ability to profile these threat actors, the ability to understand their modus operandi on what they are doing, and thus be able to predict what does this mean for your organization is critical. And thus, the use cases around profiling, about understanding modus operandi, looking at various cybercrime markets to understand what's going on, what are the transactions. Hey, is somebody selling credit cards? Is somebody selling, is somebody out there in the market to purchase malware which can affect financial services? You need to know about it. Those are excellent intelligence triggers that one can use. And this also includes threat advisories. As I'm sure a lot of you here would have seen, you would receive advisories from various organizations such as a Certain, right, who are looking at threat intel probably at a much more global level, and they would issue advisories on specific topics. But there is also a need for advisories to be more specific to the industry that you operate in, to the geography that you operate in, and the ecosystem that you're operating in, right? And those advisories can be really, really helpful for cybersecurity teams and organizations to mitigate their cyber risk. Lastly, the use case that I'd emphasize upon is the brand reputation monitoring. Today, a lot of organizations leverage the online brand for various activities in their business. How do we think about the ability for organizations to monitor social media? Think phishing sites, think domains which have been set up to enable those phishing sites. All these are part of a brand reputation monitoring services, which also includes executive email protection, takedowns of domains which are mallified. This entire ecosystem monitoring on the online media, I think, is extremely critical as a use case. The one last thing I will add on this, as any organization, any financial services organization looks at these use cases, it is not enough to just look at the use case and see the value out of it, which is very apparent, right? You will be able to see the value. But as a practitioner, think also about how do you consume this use case? How does this flow back into your ecosystem of the organization? How will your SOC team consume this information? How will they act on it? Because time is of essence. So the whole workflow from intel to making it an actionable intel is something that I think is key to success. Thank you, Pakadi. Back to you.
Thank you, Rishi. That's quite a very extensive use case. Yeah. Now, I want to ask Jurgen, from your perspective as a user, yeah, regardless where you are now, can you share some of your views on the use case?
Yeah, sure. So in the context of when we're talking about CTI, I'm just going to put the digital risk protection story under the CTI umbrella. And if you want to position a use case, either before you get funding or after you get funding from your management, that really all depends on the most basic idea. And one of the major ideas I push forward, and might be the vision I have mostly for every CTI program, is that CTI informed decision making and not driving decisions. I make a big distinction here, because driving means if I give you a vulnerability intelligence item, oh, this vulnerability is now trending. It's now maybe coming to us, right? If you give this to someone and they say, yeah, so who's going to patch it? And you become a little bit of a driver. If someone is telling you, oh, you reported it, so you need to make sure it's going to get patched. You become vulnerability management, which is not the role of CTI. So I say always informer. So CTI informed, basically a CTI-led security program is basically the main idea. So this can be your main vision deck for the future, and then mapping to all the separate departments you have internally. So you probably start with CSOC or incident response team or your threat hunting team to help and inform that. You can also go a little bit more to the architecture team, where they can do threat intelligence as a source of making sure that the architecture is formed according to threat models you have on you. So that definitely would help. There's also looking at your own phishing campaign. Maybe you want to see what's seen on the internet, and hey, this new phishing pattern. Recently, there was something like there's a new pattern where they use a Word document, and then within the Word document, there is a reference to an Excel document, and from that Excel document, there's the malicious code. So they're doing a two-step way. There's a new pattern of phishing. Yeah, if that's new intelligence you're gathering, then you might want to inform your own phishing department, or at least the part of your company that is basically taking care of this to, hey, shouldn't we test this internally on our users, or are we properly protected against this? So this is a very practical example of how this can help your organization. So that will be my first position on the idea, on what kind of use case it should do at the end, the main vision. The second part is that, the official response to any kind of what is the right use case for CTI is mostly has to do with your, the answer is always, it depends. And it says, yeah, it depends on what? On your priority intelligence requirements, the PIR as they refer to, which is mostly a product or a result of your first document in a CTI program, which is your planning and direction document, where you basically go to all your senior management and say, hey, what do you care about? What do you want to have intel on? What have you seen in the past? What kind of security incidents do we care about? You map that all together, including your regulations pressure, your basically your pressure posture you get from all sides, and then from there you get an idea. Okay, this is what my stakeholders care about, and these are my priority intelligence requirements to focus on. So that will be my main use cases. So and then mapping down, I guess, for the last example is basically well, yesterday night Twitch got breached. What is the use case for this, right? So if you are an organization that maybe has a lot of gamers in your organization, and there's a high probability that some of them have registered on Twitch, they might have credentials there that are also hitting your company, right? So there's a very simple example. And then you just let the CTI team, or in this case, Cyble is very talented at that, to grab that data set, and then they will find you if you got hit or not, right? Are the credentials of your organization in there? And if they are, you can forward that back to your users. So that's a very practical example. Another one is a little bit more on the Facebook outage that happened Monday. Yeah, how did it happen, right? This is just looking at that, trying to evaluate the TTP, what really happened, what caused this. In this case, yeah, it was a BGP route that was replicated in the wrong way. And in this case, Facebook owns their own DNS server, and that was sitting in that BGP subnet. And so nobody was able to reach their DNS server. And as a result, it stopped basically from there. So yeah, that's why there was global outage. So the intelligence piece from that is that, hey, internally you should look at, hey, who's doing the BGP route replication, and do we have DNS servers in there, right? This is a very simple example of how you can take relevant intelligence, but contextualize, making a contextual report internally and checking if it's not hitting you, right? So this is basically my use case example on that. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Jurgen. While still on the issue of use case, why do you think is I'm going to the third question, to the next question, actually still on the subject of use case. Why do you think is these use cases are very important. What is the relevancies to this? And I will direct this question to all three of you, starting with Jurgen.
Okay, so
What's your take on this?
Yeah. So what's the most equally important, or what is the most valuable intelligence? Well, the most valuable intelligence is the one that's actionable and having direct value to the company. So that's it. And that has to do a lot also what is perceived by senior management also as valuable, right? If you have an vulnerability intelligence item that is hitting 90% of your infrastructure and you're super exposed, and you found that, you will get a name inside your company. And then we say, oh, these CTI guys, they know what they're doing. That's how your reputation builds, and that's how you can leverage getting, I guess, more funding in the future or build out your program further. That would be my short answer. And of course, the standard answer is it depends. What is your priority intelligence requirement? So do you know your own organization well enough to really help them with the right intelligence piece? And maybe just to put it in the other way, a lot of intelligence use cases are important, but what I see also a lot of intelligence teams mostly just forward existing CTI documents from external vendors and just forward directly into the organization. I think that's not providing value. Even if you spot the most intelligence item that's most valuable, if you don't translate the context of the organization internally, it's a huge problem. People will just say, yeah, so what? What's the value here? How's this accounting to us? So there's a big challenge there, I see. So that would be my opinion on it. So maybe Rishi can comment or.
Thank you, Jurgen. What about you, Rishi? Anything to add?
I completely agree. Right, it does depend. So you can't like choose one over the other. But I think some of the parameters that one can look at is, hey, where is my business headed, right? What is important to me at that point in time? And thus, if I can have intel which is supporting that business objective, for example, say it's a financial year closing, right? And there's a lot of sensitivity of information in that domain before it becomes public. Now, if there is specific intel that can be curated and shared, which helps support that business objective, that to me is a lot more value at that point in time. So while you look at the larger picture, how do you keep the balance so that you can also focus on specific immediate business objectives while you are looking at the larger ecosystem? I think the business sees a lot more value in that. To Jurgen's point, that is where the leadership, the business leaders will see immediate value of the actions that the cybersecurity teams would be taking.
Thank you, Rishi. And this is Maxim. What's your take on this? As the based on your experience, why what do you think is why is it important to share a use case?
Yeah, thank you. So once again, I also would like to 100% agree with what Jurgen and Rishi just said. Probably I would try to, and people are saying that, okay, you have to protect all the gates, right? But the bad guy have to find just one small hole, right? So, and when you are speaking about how to not to have make it happen, you should not discount any kind of intel which you're receiving, because you never know what kind of intel will help you. And I specifically want to advocate for the third-party leaks. I'm not speaking about those third-party leaks which are leading to the supply chain attacks. I'm speaking about when the information about your employees are leaking from some other third-party resources. Quite often, I'm asking, people asking me, what's in it for me? Why I should be worrying about it? And those people who looked at this kind of leaks, they know that usually it's a combination of different kind of directly identifying information, which could be your name, your surname, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, and a lot of other information. And just imagine, okay, maybe it has nothing to do to me if my employee was leaked and there is like his personal email ID there. But if there is a corporate email ID of my employee, and the bad guys knows his name, his address, his phone number, just imagine what kind of special phishing attack can be prepared against your employee. You are making it so much easier to the bad guy to prepare something very useful, which will be responded by the employee. Because just imagine if for some reason I know your date of birth, I know you that you're making a purchases on, for example, Lazada, and you are interested in, I don't know, yoga. What refrain me from sending you a message on your date of birth and saying that, okay, this is your gift voucher for the, I don't know, for the lessons of yoga. What are the options that you want, your employee won't click the link? I think that there are a lot of options that and probability that your employee will click the link. So I would say, once again, I 100% agree with Jurgen and Rishi, and from my perspective, you shouldn't discount anything when you're talking about cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim. Yeah, I'm quite sure among our attendees this morning, I'm quite sure also there's a lot of them that is very keen to learn more about threat intelligence and how they plan to use them. My question is it mandatory for this service, to obtain the service from a vendor, from a cyber threat intelligence vendor, or is it possible to build this capability in-house? What's your take on this, Jurgen?
Yeah, so this is quite an obvious challenge, right? So in my opinion, most vendors can give you intel, but it's never contextualized. It doesn't take into account your organization's context, even if they do their best. The person that really knows if intel is really applicable for your organization is the person on the inside. So I definitely believe that you need to build it internally. And if you want to learn more about the cyber threat intelligence topic, I suggest you get into the EC Council CTIA, that's the Cyber Threat Intelligence Analyst course, which I believe is not too expensive like SANS, and very much focused on the requirements, while the SANS course is not that strong on that one. So I highly recommend getting certified in that one just to get that skill set. This is also my challenge also in hiring. It's very hard to find good CTI certified people in Indonesia because this is such a new field still. So that would be my first take. This diagram, at least that's on my blog, will articulate a little bit more about what you basically need to do if you're gonna build up some form of CTI program, and I try to make it as simple as possible. So at the top, there is basically these 5 steps, which is the CTI lifecycle. If you study any item on the topic, it always comes down to the lifecycle, right? Any program is driven by a lifecycle, just like any other security program. And at the beginning, there is a summary of a planning and direction document. You just write it out and just try to work as best as possible to get information in there. So that would help. And then the collection plan, they sometimes refer to, is just a list of what do you want to collect. Now, in reality, sometimes you just already bought the platform or you just used it, and then you can sort of work backwards and say, oh, this is what I'm collecting and this is what I'm not seeing. Let's say maybe you don't have coverage on social media, but you do have App Store or data or Darkweb monitoring coverage, right? This gives you an idea of what you're seeing on the threat landscape. And then the processing and exploitation. By the way, at the last stage of this life cycle, they talk about dissemination. This is very heavy English words that I personally never use. This is because it's an American US standard, basically. So it basically means you're communicating your intelligence report. So I just want to make it simple. And processing and exploitation just means look at it, you try to extract the core out of it, and then you try to produce a report out of it. It's just writing a report and sharing it. So let's keep it simple for the people who are listening. Yeah, and at the end, there needs to be stakeholders that receive some form of report, right? So that's mostly the essence what I try to articulate in this slide. Yeah, that will be my most key tips on this topic.
Thank you, Jurgen. What about you, Rishi? Anything to comment or add?
Hey, look, the business, like Jurgen said, nobody can understand your business as you do, right? You have the right context, you have all the information, on where the business is heading, where it's been, and thus you absolutely have the right context. I also believe that, and this is not just because I am with Cyble, but I also believe that security is a team sport, right? You can't operate alone to do security, whether it's in the physical world or in the digital world. And when you think of it as a team sport, you need to be cognizant of where you are in your cybersecurity maturity roadmap. You need to be cognizant of what are the resources and time constraints that I have, and then choose a build versus buy kind of a combination. And this combination of a build versus buy will change and evolve as organizations go on their maturity roadmap. What may start as a buy, for example, 5 years later, an organization may decide, hey, I should just use an open source library, build on top of it, and maybe I'm good. Or maybe my threat hunters now are at that level of maturity that threat actor profiling can be done across multiple languages, across billions of data records internally. And that's great. I think organizations should absolutely move there, but one needs to be cognizant of where one is. And in that interim, how do you partner to think, hey, how can I leverage information that I'm getting, consume it, curate it, and then use it in my organization? To Jurgen's earlier point, it cannot be a pass through. It cannot be, hey, I've got something which I'm, kind of forwarding internally to my team or wherever else without any additional context, without any ability to make it actionable. Then it wouldn't help, right? It wouldn't help the cause. But an effective partnership would here in this kind of a scenario would mean somebody who understands the business, somebody who's able to provide you with intel that can become actionable when it comes to you as an organization, which you use to mitigate your cyber risks. Remember, there are, for example, at Cyble, when we look at intel, we are talking, I don't know, billions of data records. We're talking every day figuring out, hey, what are the new marketplaces which I can leverage to understand the chatter? What are the new threat actors that are coming up? Being able to correlate it from different other industries, for supply chain kind of attacks. And that is value as long as you can consume it, leverage it, and then build it out further. So I'd say it's a journey. Be aware of resources, constraints, and then build those partnerships that help you get there and meet your business objectives faster.
Thank you, Rishi. Now we have heard and learned various angle and your experience in developing using cyber threat intelligence. Now, this is another very important question that I need to ask from the perspective of the users as well as technologists. Everything that we do is, needs to be done in such a way, and I'm quite sure that using threat intelligence technology is not something that you can use like simply like your cell phone. So my question is, to Jurgen as a user, where should we start to use this technology?
So when you start, actually, it's mostly organically born. And this is a good example where an analyst will get challenged. And I think it works better in the context of a security operations center, because that's where it starts. It's quite detailed. It might not work most optimally on this video streaming, but in essence, in a SOC mostly, there comes an alert, and that alert comes in. And this is basically where someone just tries to analyze it and like, oh, this is maybe something that's internally related to us. But let's say it was a real security incident and that event is related to a threat actor, specifically some IP, right? All the way, if you go to the in-depth investigation at the bottom point, you will get to a point where, okay, there was the security incident, something has happened. I need more information on this external IP. Who knows about this? And this is where the CTI team guy can come in and basically tell you, hey, we have seen this IP in this darknet space. We have seen it used by this threat actor, maybe it's associated with that. And the threat actor's TTP is mostly ABC, right? ABC means, okay, he comes in, maybe through phishing, installs his malware, then he does lateral movement, and then he installs this and this malware, right? Then you get a lot of enrichment around that topic. And from there, you can basically pivot into other data sets and seeing, oh, maybe we are breached. Maybe there's more to this than only this alert. And because, yeah, SOCs are not perfect. They don't cover everything. And this is where you allow your incident response team or your same CSOC team to investigate deeper and initiate threat hunts where they proactively start searching for an active threat in the organization. So this is basically one example of how you can see where it can start and provide that value. Another one is just feeds, right? Provide me feeds, and then we can do better threat detection. And if threat detection happens, then yeah, you can have an alert that is detected by your CTI program. So you get credit to that. I need to highlight, everybody is always, when you talk about feeds, they start with the open source feeds like Hail a Taxi, or I think there's 10 or 20 of those main feeds that are open source feeds. And I'm going to tell you already, I've done it multiple times. You turn them all on and they're all false positive. So the only one that I generally care about is the Tor exit nodes, which is always very strange if that appears in your network. The rest you can basically park and basically go for premium vendors. Cyble has an intelligence feed, but there's a lot of vendors out there that provide just a feed, right? So if you can integrate it and it works, perfect. And that would be my very simple and clear answer on this topic. Yeah.
Thank you, Jurgen. So Rishi, what's your tip, or anything that based on your experience, where to start on this?
Hey, what Jurgen presented was very, very comprehensive, right? It kind of gives you the entire lay of the land. So I have nothing more to add on that. But I think overall cybersecurity journey includes, think, prevent, detect, respond, right? And a lot of work that CTI does is in the space of the response category, that you help move response faster. I think the ability for an organization to get better at it starts by measuring it. So how do you think of the time that it takes for any of these activities from a time of ingestion to a time of response if needed? That whole cycle time is something that we need to continue to keep an eye out for and start building those automations, building those process improvements in place to minimize that time. As any practitioner will tell you, the getting into a threat vector, having a challenge is a part of doing business. We will see those challenges come up. The ability for us to respond to those challenges quickly and mitigate the risk so that the business can get back on its feet is where the key to success lies. And I think just having visibility around that would be a good place to start building your practice, right? It's not easy to have that number, but it takes time and effort to build transparency into that metric. So I'd say build that metric as well as you go along.
Thank you, Rishi. And I have another question for you, Rishi. We talk about the technology aspect and various things relating, data gathering. Jurgen touched base a little bit on that. How easy is it to use threat intelligence and DRP services? And in terms of the human talent requirement, what is the minimum level needed by organization to be able to use this technology effectively?
Hey, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Look, a lot of financial organization folks here, so I will use a financial services principle, which I read about recently in the context of social media, but I think it's equally relevant here. It's known as the Gresham's law, which essentially is used in currency markets, but it goes on to say, hey, if you have bad money and good money, eventually bad money takes over good money, right? And this is more an economics concept, but if you bring it back to the work that we do, and you think about this in terms of data, and Jurgen also just spoke about false positives and stuff like that, right? You'll have good data, bad data. You can't ignore any data. You will always have good data, bad data. And your ability to carve out what is good, your ability to curate what is good, and you leverage that is what success and skill set looks like in this area. So when you think of skill sets in the area of cybersecurity, threat intel, and DRP as a subject, I would think of a couple of things. One, ability to understand data, work with data, look at various modeling on data, I think is going to be a key skill set that any cybersecurity analyst, engineer should possess. You absolutely need to have a perspective on cybersecurity, right? You need to have the ability to what we call as hunt, right? Have the motivation and the skill set needed to go out there, explore various marketplaces, understand modus operandi of various actors, and build your ability to pick on cues, which is the core intel related work. And third, I would say equally, have the ability to with the business and be that conduit where the business is able to understand and leverage what output the CTI teams, the DRP teams are generating, but also be able to take that input from the business on what is important to them, because that will change. That is not something that is going to be static. It is, and this is not something which comes in a box. This is not something that you will have a person or a team who will bring in all these varied skill sets. But
just to let you know, most of us are attending a session here.
Sorry about that. That wasn't me. But yeah, so you wouldn't be able to get it all in one box in one place, but the ability to keep leveraging different skill sets to build those communication channels, I think is going to be key as a skill set in this area. Sorry, it kind of broke my chain of thought, but I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Rishi. And I have my last question. This is a very important question, and it's something that's been on everybody's mind, yeah, with a lot of breaches, leakage happening everywhere in the world. Can threat intelligence and DRP, provide data protection? And I will ask and direct this question to Maxim. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this question, Pakardi. And actually, I hear this question quite often. And when it's asked, yeah, people usually do it with a pinch of salt. And why they do it, right? Because usually people think, okay, if something bad has happened, it has happened already. If, for example, credential leaked, they're leaked. And you can do nothing about it already, which means that, yes, probably Cyble or other security vendor can notify you quickly and probably even will help you to somehow remediate the issue. But if you're looking at the fact, bad thing has already happened. And if you look at it very simply, then your service was not able to help not to happen, right? So, but logically it looks like a right way to think about it, but there is one big mistake that people do when they think about this problem, because people usually see the result, yeah, and they don't think about they don't take into consideration things which are preceding this result. You understand what I mean, right? So if you on daily basis making your job, when you are monitoring your assets and trying to with the hope to identify any kind of vulnerability, in this way you are helping yourself to avoid such a situation in the future. Yeah, so whatever you do today helps you in the future. And well, even though that it's this question, I would say a little bit provocative, but my answer will be positive 100% if you're using the services from the security vendors and from Cyble. Definitely, it will help you to avoid such situation, and it will help you to save your data. This is my answer. Not sure if Jurgen or Rishi will agree with that, but that's what I think about it.
Thank you, Maxim. I think at least you can, provide us with a glimpse, on the, the CTI capability and ability. But of course, this will depend on other things. Apart from technology itself, it's not, at the utmost, but human talents is equally important, as Rishi outlined, and Jurgen also mentioned that you need to have some proficiency in this area. Otherwise, you will not understand. But like I said, this is some discussion that I think is very important this morning. But unfortunately, due to our limited time, we have to move on to the next phase of this discussion. And we can continue with other discussions after this session, and hopefully the audience will be able to understand what we have been discussed, what has been discussed, what are the steps that needs to be taken, and various other things. But of course, I'm quite sure there's still a lot of questions still hanging within the audience mind, but that itself can be addressed later on, or maybe after this discussion. Thank you, Jurgen, Rishi, and Maxim, for your sharing. It's quite insightful. Terima kasih juga kepada bapak-bapak.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih juga kepada bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu yang berkenan menghadiri acara diskusi panel pada pagi ini. Cuman saya ingin mengingatkan bahwa pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang disampaikan melalui chat atau belum terjawab dalam kesempatan pada pagi dan siang ini, nanti tim dari Solusi akan segera menghubungi bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu untuk menindaklanjuti pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang belum terjawab. Untuk itu saya ingin juga mengingatkan sebelum acara ini berakhir, kami juga ingin mengingatkan ada feedback form yang kiranya dapat berkenan untuk diisi secara online dengan ada barcode atau scan QR code yang bisa di-scan. Mungkin juga bisa ditayangkan linknya oleh host ya, yang bisa dibuka linknya. Dan kami memberikan waktu kurang lebih 1 menit untuk bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu untuk mengisi feedback form online, dan pastikan bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu mengisi dan menjawab pertanyaan yang ada di dalamnya. Karena setahu saya ada semacam door prize atau lucky draw ya dari host yang bisa menjawab pertanyaan-pertanyaan dengan baik, tentunya akan terpilih menjadi pemenang. Terima kasih, saya sudah berkenan menyampaikan banyak hal terkait dengan threat intelligence. Ya, kebetulan juga ada kontributor dari Cyble dan dari Gojek, GoTo yang berkenan menyampaikan sharing pada pagi ini. Dan kiranya dalam kesempatan ini kita juga bisa memberikan apresiasi kepada bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu yang sudah mengikuti acara ini dari pagi hingga akhir pada siang ini. Dan saya cuma bisa menyampaikan bahwa nanti ada semacam lucky draw atau door prize berupa saldo digital yang akan diberikan oleh host kepada 3 pemenang. Dan apakah kita sudah ada nama-namanya dari panitia. Bisa ditayangkan host nama-nama yang terpilih menjadi pemenang door prize atau lucky draw pada siang ini. Waduh, hebat. Kami atas nama panitia mengucapkan terima kasih kepada 3 pemenang, yaitu Bapak Immanuel dari PT Telkom, Bapak Amin Kanda dari Bio Farma, dan Ibu Helena CTO dari Kementerian PAN RB. Sekali lagi kita ucapkan selamat dan berikan aplaus. Dan apakah bisa kita juga sampaikan kepada bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu berapa kira-kira saldo digital yang diperoleh oleh para pemenang ini? Apakah ada yang bisa di-share? Saya kira nanti panitia akan menghubungi masing-masing pemenang. Sekali lagi, mari kita ucapkan selamat kepada para pemenang dan berikan aplaus kepada para narasumber yang berkenan meluangkan waktu pada pagi hingga siang pada hari ini. Bapak Ibu hadirin yang terhormat, selesai sudah rangkaian kegiatan acara pada pagi hari ini, dan sekali lagi kami ucapkan terima kasih banyak atas waktu dan partisipasi bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu. Dan I also like to express our deepest thanks to Jurgen, Rishi, and Maxim, dan tentunya Pak Rifani sebagai host pada acara pagi ini. Sekali lagi, terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Pak Kardi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone. Terima kasih.